Hello, everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast, and this week's show is sponsored by Cincinnati Public Schools. I'm your co-host, John Alexander Reese. And if you didn't know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African-American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and northern Kentucky area. And today we have with us our digital correspondent, Andria Carter. And today we have with us the founder and CEO of the Greater Cincinnati African-American Heart Association, Sandra Wright. How's it going, Sandra?
Excellent, excellent. And I want to thank you and the Herald for having me on Chocolate News today.
We are so glad to have you on. Now, before we jump into our main topic, let's talk about some of the chocolate news of the week. So, Andria, what's the chocolate news?
Well, it's an interesting week for chocolate news because we have, again, a little bit of emotion, a little bit of politics, a little bit of hope, so to speak. And I'm going to start it off with, everyone saw a story about COVID. The toll of COVID in the US has reached over 1 million deaths, which is such a sad thing to hear about. That we've lost 1 million people to this virus, which is, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, even though some things have loosened regarding mask wearing and hand sanitizing and things like that. But it's kind of sad to see that we have, reached that we've lost 1 million people, Americans, to this, not including the number around the world. And we're the world's highest toll of deaths regarding this virus, which is unfortunate. In America, where everyone's trying to do their part, there's a lot of people who still are not vaccinated. There are a lot of people who refuse to get vaccinated. There are some people who don't believe in the vaccine. They don't think it's worth anything because everyone's getting it anyway. But as I will say that it is a thing of where I've gotten the vaccine and I've gotten both boosters. And the interesting thing is that when I did get COVID, I didn't have to go to the hospital. My lungs were not damaged. I didn't lose my reactions. I didn't lose the sense of smell or anything like that. And you never know, I've been around people who, in fact, I just had a scare the other day of where I got a phone call where I had been exposed to COVID and I had to take a COVID test and then I had a false positive and I had to take it again. So we're going to be living with this for a while. So I just recommend that if you have a home test yourself, be proactive, keep yourself safe, get the vaccines if you want it, and but continue living on with your life. So that's the first story. The Washington Post won a Pulitzer for their coverage of January 6th.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, I covered the civil unrest back in 2001 in the city of Cincinnati, and that was a baby coverage compared to what they covered with January 6th. And their coverage was amazing. I mean, everyone's coverage of January 6th has been amazing, but I mean, the Washington Post was boots on the ground, and they continue to cover the committee, see what's being said, what's happening, uncovering information. And it's amazing to what's coming out and how high up this situation, who caused this situation. And it's just going to be interesting to see who's going to be arrested and charged. I know some people have already been arrested and convicted already. But I know as folks, the reality of their situation opens up, they are cooperating more and more with the January 6th committee. So I think it's going to be interesting to continue to watch the news coverage of this, and especially from the Washington Post, to see what they do next. So I just commend them on their coverage. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, I believe that, doesn't Jeff Bezos own the Washington Post?
Yes, they do. Correct? Yes, he does.
Well, you know what? It's good to see that, he doesn't really get involved with the newspaper, and basically the newspaper can still do its job. So, I commend the Washington Post.
I think he's more involved from the back office making sure that they are a leader in advancement, a leader in how to be proactive and keep the business going. Right. Because everyone is still figuring that out about, the news business it's another conversation, but in a nutshell, the news game has taken a huge hit because what has supported the news industry over the last 200 years no longer supports them. Right. It's a totally different game Bezos understands that. I think he learned a lot by developing Amazon and what he's gone through with Amazon, because remember, Amazon started out just selling books and nothing else. Now you can go to Amazon and get everything. It's become this mass market of e-commerce. And I think that's what's missing from the news industry is how do you adapt e-commerce to information to get attention and sell it to people in a different way. One of them is subscriptions, and then there are other ways to do it. So everyone's still figuring it out. But I commend the Washington Post for continuing on and being the great journalists that they are and covering what's important to us, because at the end of the day, our democracy needs to be covered, and we all should have a subscription to the Washington Post. I do, and their coverage is fantastic. I just love it. Then also an interesting story from the National Newspaper Publishers Association. The Raiders, the owners of the Las Vegas Raiders, is open to hiring Colin Kaepernick. And I want to see what this is going to look like, what this is going to do. Because the Las Vegas Raiders are a good team, a very good team.
Yes, they are.
And it would be interesting to see Colin Kaepernick play for them, even though I don't like their stadium, but I would like to see Colin play for them. So, that would be an interesting thing. And I just have high hopes for Colin, because he can only, be on an NFL team for only so long, for a few more years, and then his career is gone. So I'm hoping that he gets a shot to show what he can do.
I would love to see if that actually happened, just to, just to see, can Colin Kaepernick, put his money where his mouth is, or
yes, and I would like to see it too,
and just to give him a chance. I mean, seriously, it's like blackballed, and just give him a chance to play someone. That's all
we'll see what happens. We will. I'm keeping my fingers crossed to see what happens with that. The next story is Biden is offering a program to discount the internet services for those people who. There are a number of individuals who don't have the internet in their home. I mean, like, the internet has now become, Wi-Fi is now a necessity to survive in this world. And I think that there's a number of people also, especially in the rural areas, they don't have access to Wi-Fi as often as they would like to. And so Biden has announced that 20 internet companies have agreed to provide discounted service to people with low incomes, opening up the opportunity for those who are struggling to survive, have an opportunity to have Wi-Fi in their home, so their children can do research at home, work at home, and things like that. So I think that's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, because, I mean, if you think about it, in the city of Cincinnati, if you go out and about in the downtown area, you have access to Wi-Fi through Cincinnati Bell.
Yeah, they do.
Which is, when you're out and about, that's a good thing to have, so you're not using up all your data on your cell phone. And I think everyone should have an opportunity to be part of the Wi-Fi age. And, Wi-Fi is the new utility bill you must have to survive in this world.
Yep, so sure do.
It's unfortunate, but actually it's fortunate at the same time, because if you didn't have Wi-Fi at the height of the COVID pandemic, you couldn't work.
I just want to chime in here just for a sec on this topic.
Yeah.
I learned a couple of days ago that my 4-year-old great-granddaughter has a cell phone at 4.
Wow.
Oh my God.
But here's the real piece to this. She is proficient at using it. She was literally showing my husband, Papa, all kinds of systems and how they work, and teaching him at 4 years old about all of this. We were all just stunned looking at her, at least my husband and I were. But her mom was like, well, yeah, 4, they got to have a phone. I was like, this is incredible.
That's something.
Well, I mean, but then again, I mean, when I'm out shopping, it's amazing how many dads and mothers have their children holding the cell phone, looking at a video, looking at this, to keep them occupied. And I'm just amazed that, when I was growing up, that we didn't have that. We were told if you had to be quiet in the store, you had to be quiet in the store.
Wow.
It's a whole new world. It's unbelievable how much technology has inserted itself into our lives so that,
Yes.
you can't, even though starting out in my career, I didn't have a cell phone, but, as a news reporter, eventually the cell phones were like the key ingredient to doing my job, key ingredient to, getting the information out there, up on social media, letting folks know what's going on. It's amazing to me how that has occurred. So it's going to be interesting who takes advantage of Biden's, how all the internet companies are going to process this out, and what discounted program is going to, how much of a discount it's going to be to offer low-income individuals Wi-Fi, because I know I pay a certain amount every month and it's a business expense for me.
Yeah, right.
So.
And to your point, though, it definitely is a necessity now. It is not just something that we just do. It's not a luxury anymore. You need it. So it's a good thing, I think, that he's doing that.
Oh
Biden.
yeah,
Very good.
it is. I mean, because everyone needs, what's the point of public education is providing access to all the information that you need to learn and build on and survive in this world. And unfortunately, technology has been a slow proponent to be added to the curriculum for kids to learn. But now it's you have to have it. You have to do it. I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. The final chocolate news of the night is that the Senate fell short of passing their legislation to codify the Roe v. Wade abortion law. The GOP did a filibuster to block its effort. Joe Manchin, no surprise here, sided with the GOP to not let it go through.
Yep.
And Chuck Schumer has said that this will not go undone. This will get through. And I'm just kind of like, just like you said about voting, the Voting Rights Act, you said you vowed it was going to get through, and they still have not taken care of it. I think at some point they're just going to have to let go of the filibuster and get the job done. And I think they would get more support for the midterms if they did their job and did what they have to do to take care of the people of this country, and not just say, oh well, I'm sorry, but I need someone with brute force from the Democratic Party to stand up and stand with the people and stand with for women and stand for everyone, because voting rights is important. Abortion rights, whether you choose to have an abortion or not, you need to have the right to choose to have that done if you need it. And for some man who I don't know to tell me on one aspect of my physical force to tell me, no, I can't have that done, how dare you? Does that mean that then women have the right to tell men they can't have vasectomies? They can't have, what's that little blue pill?
Yeah.
I mean, do we now have to start, if they're going to deny women's rights regarding reproductive, then maybe we should start taking a look at men's rights of reproduction and make sure that if they have any emissions, they can't waste any emissions of their reproductive rights. Maybe we should start restricting them. I think this is wrong on so many levels. I think men are minority women who use these facilities, the Planned Parenthood, well, I would just say use these clinics for more than just abortions, but health care. It's wrong. And I think everyone has a right to decide what happens to their body, whatever it is. And to have a law regarding this one fragment of our lives to possibly be overturned is unfortunate, because everyone should have a right to say something.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, Andrea. And you know what, I think like the most ironic part is like the founding fathers, they said, and all the people who came over here back in the 1600s, they escaped here from religious persecution. And now they're trying to make this into like religious argument. It's like, it's just a women's health thing. It's like, yes. And I just don't get it. And it's like just men need to stay out of women's health. I think
is whether you're on one side of the issue or the other. I think at the end of the day, you should have the right to choose whether you do the deed or not. I think that's just a right that you have, because at the end of the day, no one's regulating whether or not you have a hysterectomy. No one is regulating whether or not you should have, your works removed because you don't want to have children, or, cesarean section or things like that. No one is regulating that. This just one issue is causing all kinds of issues. And I'm sure we're going to hear a few choice words about this when it happens. But I also want to let everybody know that on Saturday, May 14th, the Planned Parenthood organization is having a number of rallies around the country, and in support of upholding the women's right to choose, or at least just the woman's right to be able to decide about her health care. So on Saturday, May 14th, on Fountain Square from 11 to 1, there will be a rally about this. And I would say, if you're for it or against it, but if you want your voice to be heard and you want your right upheld, you need to be down there talking and speaking up and showing your support for just women's rights. Whether you like it or not, show your support for women's rights, and that's what it should be. So We'll see. We'll be staying on top of the situation and see what happens.
And also, people need to remember to vote, especially in the midterm elections. Vote.
Yes. Vote.
All right. Well, thanks, Andrea. And now I'll throw over to our founder and CEO of the Greater Cincinnati African American Heart Association, Sandra Wright. So once again, how are you doing, Sandra?
I am fantastic. I'm coming up on my 5th year post-op transplant. Heart transplant. And so I'm extremely excited about that. Every day that I open my eyes and I can still be a part of the land of the living, honey, that trumps everything else that's going on in that day.
Yeah, I bet it puts a lot of things in perspective, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness, your whole perspective literally changes. You change. And for me, I can honestly say that it is one of the best things that have happened to me in my life. It totally changed everything about me. The way that I function, the things that I tolerate and what I don't tolerate, I just completely live in a state of mind of peace. And when something comes along to try to disrupt that and upset that, I quickly remind myself that I live in a place, in a state of mind of can't be bothered. And then I find myself right back in my center of being peaceful.
Right. So when did you start the Greater Cincinnati African American Heart Association?
We actually founded in 2018 is when all of this came to the surface. And I was embarking on something else. I had Sandra's plan, but then God showed his plan, and it had nothing to do with what I was trying to do. I was trying to move in the direction of having a dinner theater so that I could produce the plays. I like to write plays.
Okay.
And so as it turned out, I left the hospital knowing that I had a greater work to do, but I didn't know what it was. So in 2018, I kind of got started in the direction and then got segued into this. COVID hit. I had founded this under the name of SW Productions, but I wanted to do this charitable work in the arena of heart health for the African American community. And so as I began to talk with different people, and folks wanted to donate, etc. That's when we started to get clarity. It's like, well, you can't really go in this direction if your heart is here. No pun intended. And so the long story short is I filed for a name change, and that was right at the point where the IRS had shut down and COVID was on the scene. And, I kind of shared a little bit of all of that with you offline. But yeah, so we didn't really get our official name change until I believe it was actually in 2019. And it was on the heels of 2020 the Greater Cincinnati African American Heart Association is doing well. And now we are actually starting to get recognition from some of the powers that be within this city. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Now, I know you guys have an event coming up. Can you guys talk to us about that?
Yes, so we have this program in the organization, which is our Strength and Courage community network support. And under the auspice of that, we have the Red Shoe, Let's Go Red Shoes, which is our women's health initiative. And we also have the Right Heart Wellness Wednesday. And so coming up on May the 22nd, the May the 21st, which is next Saturday, we are doing the Right Heart Strength and Courage High Tea fashion show fundraiser. And that's going to be at the Doubletree Hotel out there in Blue Ash. And the time is from 1 to 4. All the information and details of that can be found on our website at gcaaha.org. And we're just extremely excited about that. There's a package for an individual ticket, and then you can also be a table sponsor.
Now, on your website, I see you guys' vision, and it basically says it is to see African American people making decisions for good health that aid in avoiding the pitfalls of developing chronic illnesses and cardiovascular disease, ultimately achieving a healthier quality of life. What are some steps to help prevent heart disease and just to have a better quality of life? Just give us a couple of steps.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. And it's real simple things. One is getting efficient sleep. Too many of us we're chasing too many things. We're staying up, we're watching TV, we're engaged with our phones and our computers, and we're sleep deprived. We're crashing and cramming for tests and whatnot. We're trying to pursue these goals, but we're failing to accomplish the first goal, which is to pay attention to our health. So sleep deprivation, get adequate sleep, and your diet. Be cognizant of what you're eating, why you're eating, and when you're eating, because all of that makes a difference. I'm learning not to do that. Too many live to eat instead of eat to live. It's a huge difference. And the outcomes are definitely different.
Yeah.
So those are just two basic things, get adequate sleep, and of course, exercise. And you don't have to be doing something so vigorous. You don't have to necessarily be a member of some gym or whatever. You literally can walk around in your living space. Even if you're in a small apartment, you can walk from wall to wall. Do it about 15 or 20 times. You'll get your heart rate up, and you'll see the significant benefit in that. So that's 3 things right there.
That's perfect. I want to identify with the last one because I know during 2020, especially during quarantine, I know that I couldn't go to the gym or anything, but one of the things I was doing, I was just walking through the house and everything, and that really helped me out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Andrea, do you have any questions for Sandra?
No, you've answered all my questions. It sounds exciting. And I just think that the fashion show sounds like it's going to be a fun event.
It is. And for those of us in the city, a lot of our women in particular know of Sandra Secure and her cutting edge fashions. And she is going to be the presenter of the fashion show. Her business is Inspire Salon and Boutique. And her spring and summer collection is going to be electrifying and exciting. This is going to be a wonderful, elegant afternoon. It will be a full plated lunch and you will be served. It's not a buffet. It's just going to be wonderful. And as I said, you can get all the details at our website. If you have any further questions, I am not a CEO that is untouchable, and I have vowed to be that throughout my existence with this organization because I'm here for the people. And so if you need to call and speak to a person, you can call me direct at 513-484-4772.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. I want to thank you, Sandra, so much for coming on and talking about your organization. And then I just hope people, get this message, exercise, eat right, and just try to live a healthy life and everything.
And sleep.
Yes, and
Many of
sleep.
us are sleep deprived because, we don't think it's important. I had a presentation today, and then I'm going to shut this down. And we talked about sleep. Your body is designed to function like a well-oiled machine. And your sleep is when your body is healing itself. It's when your immune system is repairing itself. And so if we don't get adequate sleep, if you don't sleep at the right times too, because what I was explaining to them, your melanin, your natural melatonin in your body, it functions at its optimal when you're asleep. And so the brighter the sun gets, the lower your melatonin levels go down. They're at their peak during those sleeping hours. And so if you're not asleep during that time, you're throwing everything off in your body. And I didn't know that. I've learned a lot of things over these last 5 years since starting this organization. And I learned that from a very special friend of mine who happens to be a nurse for many years. And, that was one of the things that changed me. So to know better in most cases is what? Is to do better, at least with most people.
Of course, definitely. And you are what you eat.
Absolutely. That is a fact. And this is a whole different conversation right here. This is a whole show when you start talking about this.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Sandra. All right, everyone, that's it for today's show. I want to thank Andrea for coming on and discussing all of this good chocolate news. So thank you, Andrea.
Well, it's my pleasure, John. And I'm always on the lookout for good chocolate news. So we'll see what happens in the next podcast.
All right. And once again, thanks to Cincinnati Public Schools for sponsoring this podcast. You can find out more information about today's topics and past podcast episodes at www.thecincinnatiherald.com, the SESH newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. Our podcast is on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. I'm John Alexander Reese, and have a good day.